Well, Kris Knoblauch promised you he would tell you what was going to happen with Leon Draisaitl. Well,
he didn't really promise.
Well, okay, so he strongly suggested that was going to happen, and
he said, "I'll tell you tomorrow."
So. And what he told him was that both Draisaitl and Adam Henrique would take the warm-up tonight, and both are going to be game-time decisions. So it doesn't look like if he plays that he's going to be 100% 80. Expect him to play. And given the fact that Draisaitl has had a chance to play a lot previously with injuries, what are you expecting from him?
Yeah, I do expect him to play. I think the fact that they rolled him out in front of the media today, if they know he's out of the lineup tonight, chances are they probably don't do that unless they're trying to throw some misdirection. And I don't think that they necessarily operate that way. I think they're a little more straightforward than that. So I do believe Leon Draisaitl will play tonight. Adam Henrique will have to wait and see. Henrique did skate today, though. He came, was on the ice for 10 or 15 minutes, getting a bit of a workout in. So we'll see on Adam Henrique. As for Draisaitl, the question for me, Farhan, is can he play center effectively, right? It's called cramps. We're not sure. We're focusing a little bit more on the back, but who knows? But bottom line, to get in and dig in on those faceoffs is hard. To play center, there's more skating involved. It'll be interesting to see if they play him at center if he can play, or maybe they go with the nuclear option and they put him on Connor McDavid's wing. I mean, that would be a way to insulate him a little bit. So just how much he can play if he does will be interesting, but you made the point. We've seen Draisaitl play through some significant injuries in the past. It's going to take a lot for him to be out of the lineup here tonight. And while there's been lots of talk about the Oiler offense needing to generate a little bit more and to maybe hit another level, Farhan, when you evaluate the Canucks, you think there's even some room for growth for them offensively with some of their high-end guys?
Yeah, I think so. Now, look, the fact that the Canucks scored 5 goals, that was a playoff high through 7 games for them so far. That's a big thing for them. They knew coming into this series that they were going to have to generate more. So the fact that they got 5, I think is going to allow a few players or the group collectively, offensively, to worry less and squeeze the stick less. Right. But, if you're Quinn Hughes, the thought that 9 goals were scored in that game, 5 by Vancouver. Quinn Hughes wasn't on the ice for any of them. And he played a lot of hockey. Like, he was over 25 minutes, the highest Canuck in terms of ice time. So he's certainly involved, but he wasn't necessarily creating as much or as dynamic. He talked this morning about maybe wanting to do a little bit more, but the fact that they could do that and him not have to be involved or responsible for 5 of those goals, I think is a good thing for Quinn Hughes. And even he talked about that and the depth scoring as it relates to that. Now, the other one, of course, Elias Pettersson. We talk a lot about him and his ability to get things done offensively. And the one thing with him is that even though he also wasn't on the ice for any goal for or against in that game, when you look at his percentage of shots and scoring chances, he was in a pretty good place. Now, he got some good matchups because he was generally out against Edmonton's bottom 6 forwards. So we saw he was a little more noticeable. We saw Ilya Mikheyev, his line mate, and Nils Höglander were a little more noticeable. But ultimately, there needs to be a bit of a bottom line because if those guys are going to get those matchups, they need to find a way to deliver.
So the thing on Pettersson that I noticed too, I mean, and lots of talk about not offensively playing well enough, and then he's been a bit of a ghost so far in the playoffs, but he was used in the third period. Like, Rick Tocchet went to him a lot. I think he played almost 9 minutes in that third period, Farhan. So
most of any Canuck forward.
Well, and maybe that's a bit of a boost of confidence for him and something for him to try and build off of heading into game 2.
Yeah, potentially, right? And we look at him and we don't know. We all assume there's an injury, that we just don't know what it is. But if you looked at how he was skating and some other aspects of his game, if there is a part, I'm not sure what it is. He took some shots, which generally he doesn't load up the slap shot as much.
He tried to throw some big hits, too.
Well, and if you talk about both Pettersson and Hughes, they're not necessarily going to be involved in the physical stuff in terms
of
though.
He missed, but he tried.
Yeah, so tell me about that part of the game as you see it from Edmonton's standpoint, because it's only been 1 game, but there's not much hate here yet.
Yeah, no, I would say so. This is the stat sheet that we get after every game that the league keeps, and these are all the stats. And there's a bit of a debate over the last couple of days about how accurate these are. But as I'm rolling down in this hit category for the Edmonton Oilers, it's like Darnell Nurse, none. Cody Ceci, none. Vinny Desharnais, none. I think the Oiler D-Corps had maybe 3 or 4 in the entire game. So this does not paint a great picture for the Oilers from a physical standpoint. Now, they would suggest, Farhan, that it's not just all about that. It's more about being tough to play against and, owning your space and those sorts of things. I think we're going to see this Oiler team come out and finish way more checks tonight. I think they've probably heard this noise, not necessarily from us. I think internally they have to be saying that. Like, there's an intensity level you have to hit in the playoffs, and it naturally comes with finishing more checks. They were defending a lead a lot of that game, and I think that's maybe why there wasn't as much. I would be really surprised if the Oilers didn't come out and make a conscious effort to be more physical to a man throughout the lineup in this game than they were in the last one. But it wasn't that unfriendly out there, Farhan. Like, after the whistles, there wasn't a lot of chirping. There wasn't a lot of nastiness. There wasn't a lot of that stuff. It's fairly tame. And we were talking to Nikita Zadorov today, and he said, look, you can't keep doing that through 4 rounds of the playoffs. Like, it consumes energy. So it's a little more between the whistles here. But I could see the Oilers wanting to up the ante physically.
Well, and Zadorov with 5 hits, he certainly laid out some big ones, including one on Evander Kane early in the game. And he just knows no other way to play. But, from a Canucks standpoint, you've got to mind that line in terms of how aggressive you want to be. And Dakota Joshua had 8 hits. Lindholm, of all people, had 5 hits in the game. But you don't want to get into penalty trouble. And we talk about how tame this game was. There were 4 power plays in this game, 3 for the Canucks, 1 for Edmonton. 2 of those penalties were kind of procedural, right?
The puck in the
trapezoid. So 2 physical penalties, and then you had Zadorov. They took coincidental minors at one point, right? So there was that, but
I think, Farhan, early in that game, sorry to interrupt, but I think early in that game, the refs sent a signal that they weren't going to be calling a lot. They let a couple of things go, and I was upstairs watching going, they're letting that go. That's not good for the Oilers that they let that go, right? There were a few things, and it was both ways. I'm not saying it was one-sided. I wonder if that is sort of the way the officials are thinking about this. Is second round, let them play, and there won't be a ton, because to your point, the first two that they called, they had no choice. It was playing the puck in a trapezoid and a too many men.
Yeah, and the Canucks got nothing out of their power play when they had the 3 opportunities, and that's kind of been a familiar theme since game 1 of the first round. And the thing that I noticed the most was they struggled on entries, especially on their second and third power plays. And I did talk to Rick talking about potential improvements. Now, they're not going to share any state secrets with us at this point, but he did say that there were 2 things they saw specifically from the Oilers that they need to take advantage of. He didn't necessarily divulge what those were, but they saw it on film. They want to attack it, whether or not it's on entries or whether or not it's on in zone. They do see some things there with the Oilers' PK, and their PK was good against the Kings. So we'll see if they find a way to exploit that. The other thing is that, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, jump in on Connor McDavid, really quick. Connor McDavid, right? We have to at least mention him before we wrap up. The Oilers had no high danger scoring chances at even strength, according to Sport Logic. Yeah. Connor McDavid had a bit of an off night, Farhan. It'll be interesting to see what he looks like here tonight. He doesn't put back-to-back games like that together, so we'll keep a close eye on him. But just definitely have to mention 97 because all eyes are going to be on him.
Well, and all eyes are going to be on both goaltenders, too, because you talk about McDavid's ability to bounce back. We've seen that from Stuart Skinner. The one time he stubbed his toe in that L.A. series, he'll need to bounce back after giving up 5 in the last one. And then Artur Shilovs, we don't know what he's like in bounce-back situations.
Let's see.
We don't know what he doesn't know.
Well, he bounced back in the third period last game, so we know in-game he can bounce back.
But again, Edmonton didn't really offer much of a push, right? I mean, just not a lot of shots generated or scoring chances generated. So for Shilovs, he was out early with goaltending coach Ian Clark trying to refine a few things and then took part in the morning skate, which was an optional. So we'll see what he has because, again, he hasn't been through this before in a playoff setting in the National Hockey League. So lots of questions going into Game 2. We'll see what the answers are in a few hours.